ஆனது ரெண்டு சீர்லயும் தொடர்ந்து வரும். ஒன்னாவது ரெண்டாவது வந்து ரெண்டாவது சீர்லாம் வாசம் முடியும். இங்க வஞ்சிப்பா வரும்போது அந்த ஒவ்வொரு சீர்லயும் அற்ற முடியும். இப்ப எப்படி?
I mean, this is a clear contrast. As he says that Koraladi, I mean, Koraladi is the one which has two seers. Sindadi is three seers and Adavadi is four seers. So you could have an Asariyappa with Koraladi with two seers. That's an optional for this, a non-standard form of that. And Vanjiyadi, you would have two seers, which is normal or standard for that. But he says the difference is in Osai. That is, when you recite an Asariyappa, you will the Osai ends at the end of Adi, whereas in Vanjippa it would end at the end of C. So the same formal structure, but recited differently. That's what he's going to show, but you see whether you see that.
அப்படின்னு சொன்னா சுரமறிவன துறையலாம், சுரமறிவன துறையலாம், இறையின்பன இல்லலாம், இறையின்பன இல்லலாம், மீன்திரிவன கிடங்கெல்லாம், தேண்டாழ்வன பொழிலெல்லாம். இப்படி ஒவ்வொரு சைட்லயும் முடியுது. இப்ப நான் இன்னும் பின்னால ஒரு அகர்பாட்டு சொல்லி காட்ட போறேன். அந்த
You could see that now. See, he breaks at the end of see, it in this particular song, it goes with the syntax also, right? See, you have a predicate and then followed by a locative, locative case.
பாட்டுல இந்த குரலடியும் வருது, வஞ்சியடியும் வருது. அப்ப அந்த இடத்துல இந்த ஓசை வேறுபாடு தெரிந்து கொள்ளலாம். நான் அது குரலடியில ரெண்டு சீர் உள்ள அடி குரலடி.
அப்போ அகவல் வந்து ஒரு இன்க்ளூசிவ் காம்போசிஷன் சொன்னாங்க.
எல்லாம் சேர்ந்து வரல. நீங்க அதுல வந்து கலியோசியம் ரொம்ப காஸ்மோபாலிட்டன். அதனாலதான் என்ன சொல்லுவாங்கன்னு சொன்னா, வெண்பாவில் வந்து அந்த செப்போலோசை தவிர வேற ஓசை வரவே கூடாது. அதனால அது என்ன பின்னால அதுக்கு என்ன பண்ணலாம், ஜாதி எல்லாம் அதுக்கப்புறம் அது அந்த அப்படின்னு சொல்ல பியூரிட்டி. அது ஆசிரிப்பா அப்படி இல்ல.
Correlate with caste, the different parts. Venba is a Brahman part.
இந்த வஞ்சிப்பா இருக்க இது வந்து முடிகிற போது என்ன ஆகுன்னு சொன்னா, ஆசிரிப்பாவிலேயோ அல்லது வெண்பாவிலேயோ முடியும். இப்ப நமக்கு வேண்டியது ஓசை. அது ரெண்டு சீர் உடைய அடிக்கு பேரு குரலடி, மூணு சீர் இருந்ததுன்னா சிந்தடி சொல்லுவாங்க. இப்ப ரெண்டு சீர் வந்து ஆசிரியப்பால ரெண்டு சீரடி வருது. அங்க பொருள் முடிகின்ற பொழுது ரெண்டு சீர் ரெண்டாவது சீட்டு நீண்டிலதான் பொருள் முடியும். அந்த அடியில ஒரு தொடர்ச்சி ஒண்ணு இருக்கும். குரலடியுடைய வஞ்சிப்பாவில ஒவ்வொரு சீர்லயும் அந்த பொருள் முடிஞ்சு போகுது. சுரமறிவன துறையலாம், சுரமறிவன ஒரு பொருள் முடிஞ்சது. இதுல துறையலாம். இறையின்பன இல்லலாம், மீன் தெரிவன கிடங்கெல்லாம், தேண்டாழ்வன பொழிலெல்லாம்.
எக்ஸ் இஸ் எக்ஸ் டேஷ்ங்கிற மாதிரி
அந்த மாதிரி பொருள் முடிவு சீர்வரும் பொருள் முடிவது. இது இனி வந்து ஒரு ஆசிரியப்பாவில ஒரு உதாரணம் பார்த்து அதுல வந்து அந்த தூக்குங்கிற நீ கேட்ட விடைய நான் சொல்றேன். இப்ப இது வந்து ஔவையாருடைய பாட்டு, நமக்கெல்லாம் தெரிந்த ஒரு பாட்டு தான். அது அதிகமா நெடுமா அஞ்சி அவன் வந்து எப்படி தன்னை ஆதரித்தான் என்ப அழகாக சொல்லக்கூடிய ஒரு பாட்டு. இந்த பாட்டுல குரலடி வருது. இப்ப அந்த பாட்டு நான் முதல்ல ஓசை மட்டும் சொல்லி காமிச்சிடுறேன். சிறியகற்பெரினே எமக்கியும் மண்ணே, பெரியகற்பெரினே யாம்பாடத்தான் மகிழ்ந்துண்ணும் மண்ணே, சிறு சோற்றானும் நனிபல கலத்தன் மண்ணே, பெருஞ்சோற்றானும் நனிபலகலத்தன் மண்ணே என்பொடு தடிபடு வழியெல்லாம் எமக்கேயும் முன்னே அம்பொடு வேல் நுழை வழியெல்லாம் தானிற்கும் அன்னே நரந்த நாரும் தன்கையால் புலவனாரும் எண்டலை தைவரும் மன்னே அருந்தலை இரும்பாணர் அகன்மண்டைத் துளையொரி இறப்போர் கையுளும் போகி புறப்போர் புன்கண் பாவி சோர அஞ்சொல் நுண்டேற்றி புலவர் நாவில் சென்று வீழ்ந்தன்று அவன் அருநிறத்தியங்கிய வேலை ஆசையாகந்தையாண்டுளன்கொல்லோ இனி பாடுணரும் இல்லை பாடுணர் கொன்றீயுணரும் இல்லை பனித்துறை பகன்றை நரைக்குள் மாமலர் சூடாதுவை யாங்கு பிறக்கொன்று ஈயாதுவேயும் உயிர் தவப்பலவே. இப்ப இதுல
Yeah, he makes a difference in the first two lines, which he takes as one GAD. He breaks at the end of C. I think that the problem is after the line is broken, he puts the music. But the question is, where do you break the line, right? So then he also follows the one adi break. Which we saw in Puliyur Kesiyan's edition, where ini on the fifth line from the bottom is a separate line, right? Ini, then he goes by that, and that is called Tanichol or Kun, and that is eligible. I mean, Asariyappa could have Kun or Tanichol, but sorry, Vanjipa could have Kun, but not Asariyappa, right? So he takes the lines as Vanjipa. So if you take it as Vanjipa, the rest should have two C's, but that is not the case, right? So there is some confusion in the way the editors have done. Even in his recitation, you will see that after ini, it is not Vanjadi. I mean, it has four C's, and he sings it as four C's. I mean, the point is still there is some confusion about the breaking of the line.
Sure. இப்ப அந்த பாட்டு அந்த பொருள் உணர்ச்சியோடு படிக்கும் போது இந்த ஸ்பலோசியே அந்த கையிறு உணர்ச்சியை வெளிப்படுத்தும். முதல் இந்த அடியில சிறியகற்பெருனே எமக்கீயும் மண்ணே 4 சி இருக்குது. ரெண்டாவது வரி பெரியகற்பெருனே குரலடி 2 சி தான். யாம்பாடத்தான் மகிழ்ந்துண்ணும் மண்ணே. இப்ப நாம எழுதி படிக்கின்ற பொழுது 4 சீர் 2 சீர் இப்படிலாம் பிரிச்சு போட்டு படிக்கலாம். பழைய காலத்துல எக்ஸ்ட்ரம் போர் பாடுறதுதான். அப்பையார் வந்து
So that's the problem I found. See, he say Periyagat Perine. He says. See, according to the seer breaks, Periyagat Perine.
Exactly.
See, he doesn't recite that way. I mean, that tradition is lost, but one could argue that this line break is not right. Right? It should be a different break.
தன் உள்ள ஆற்றாமையினால அது உள்ளத்துணர்ச்சியை இயல்பாக வெளிப்படுத்துகின்றார். எழுதி படித்ததில்ல, தானாக இந்த பாட்டு வந்தது. அப்ப பாட்டு வர்ற போது எந்த சீர்ல இந்த வரி முடியுதுங்கிறது அது வந்து ஓசையில வச்சுதான் அறிய முடியும். கண்டினியூட்டி இல்ல.
அதாவது எத்தனை வார்த்தைகள் இருக்குன்னா எத்தனை சீரு அதெல்லாம் கணக்கு இல்ல.
அந்த ஓசை வச்சுதான் வரையறுக்க முடியும்.
இந்த மெட்ரோனாமிக் வேலைக்காக மெட்ரோனாமிக் மேஜிக்
நாம கையில எழுதுற போதுதான் 4 சீரு 2 சீருன்னு சொல்லி.
ஆமாமா.
இல்லையா? அப்ப வந்து அந்த பாட்டுடைய ஓசை வச்சுதான் அளக்க முடியும். இப்ப சிறியகற்பெருனே எமக்கு எம்மன்னே பெரியகற்பெருனே அங்க என்ன போகுது? யாம்பாட தான் மகிழ்ந்துண்ணும் மண்ணே சிறுசோற்றானும் நனிவலகலத்தன் மண்ணே. இப்ப சிறிகட்பெருனே முதல் வரியில எதுகையும் சிறி எதுகை இருக்கு. அதுக்கேற்ற எதுகை ரெண்டாவது வரியிலும் இல்ல, சிறிய பெரிய இல்லாவில் வருது. அப்போ பெரிய பெருனே யாம்பாடத்தான் மகிழ்ந்துள்ளேன்னா 6 சீர் வந்துடும்.
ஆமா.
அப்ப எங்க வெட்டுறது?
புரிஞ்சுதுங்க. அந்த பிரச்சனை வருது.
ஆமா ஆமா. அது ஆசிரியர் அகற்பாவில் 6 சீர் வராது, 4 சீர் வரணும். அப்ப எங்க வெட்டுறது? அப்படின்னா அந்த ஓசை அங்க டக்கு நிக்குது பாருங்க. சிறிகட் பெருனே எமக்கு இமன்னே பெரியகட் பெருனே யாம்பாடத்தான் மகிழ்ந்துண்ணும் மண்ணே சிறுசோற்றானும் நனிபலகலத்தன் மண்ணே பெருஞ்சோற்றானும் நனிபலகலத்தன் மண்ணே என்பொடு தடிபடு வழியெல்லாம் எமக்கியும் மண்ணே அம்பொடு வேல் நுழையும் வழியெல்லாம் தானிற்கும் மண்ணே. அடுத்த வரி நரவு நாரும் தன்கையால் 3 சீர் சிந்தடி 3 சீர் தான் இருக்குல்ல. நரவு நாரும் தன்கையால் புலவு நாரும் என் தலை தை வரும் மண்ணே. அது 3 நாள் 7 சீரா போக சொல்லக்கூடாது. அப்ப எங்க நிறுத்துறது? 3 சீர் எங்க இருக்கு? புலவு நாரும் தன்கையால் நரந்த நாரும் தன்கையால் புல.
Yeah, he goes into the rules of prosody, that is, Asayam would have 4 C's and Tolkapiam allows you could have 5 C's also, but never more than 6. So if you don't break here, you would end up with 6 C's and 7 C's. So that is the criterion for splitting this.
நாரும் எந்தலை தை ஒரு மண்ணே. கை அப்படி நரந்த படத்துடைய வாசம் வருதான். அதனால இந்த குளிக்காம இந்த தலைய தடவனா அப்ப அந்த கையை நரந்தனாரும் தன் கையால் புலவனாரும் எந்தலை தை வரும் மண்ணே அருந்தலை இரும்பாளர் அகன்மண்டை துளையுரி அளவிடையது உருகி படிக்கூடாது துளையுரி இறப்போர் கையொழும் போயி 3 சீர் அஞ்சொல் நுண்டேற்றி புலவண்ணாவில் சென்று வேண்டவன்றன் அருநிறந்து இயங்கிய வேலை அருநிறந்து இயங்கிய வேலை 3 சீர் ஆசாகன்.
He says in the Tulayiri with Arabadai, he says that you should not recite it as 2 vowels, long and short, but you should read it as 1 vowel with extra length, you see, Arabadai. The reason probably is that if you break it after the long vowel, then you would have 3 asai, right? Even though Asriyappa allows Muvasai Chir, but it is restricted to 1 Chir. It's a preferred one is 2 Chir, and therefore you break it as if having Irasai, right? That's why you read it as an extra length.
அப்புறம் இனி அது கூன்னு சொல்லுவோம், அது அடியில வராது, அது தனியா சொல்லணும். பாட்டோட அடியோட அச்சு போடும்போது வரியில சேர்த்து போட்டிருப்பாங்க.
ஆமாங்க,
நாம அதுக்கு கம்மா போட்டுக்கணும். அதுக்கப்புறம் அது கூன்னு சொல்றது இந்த பாட்டோடு சேரா. இனி பாடுனரும் இல்லை பாடுனர் கொன்றீகுணரும் இல்லை பனித்துறை பகன்றை நரைக்கொள் மாமலர் சூடாது வைகியாங்கு பிறக்கொன்றை ஈயாது வேயும்.
So in that line, ini padunarumelai, padunarku onru eegunarumelai, Ilambonar makes it a separate line. He breaks the line after padunarku. Padunarku. Yeah, padunarkon, right? Yeah. So that is facilitated by taking ini as part of the line, right? So you would have 3 C's. See, if you take it as a koon, then it will have only 2 C's, right?
பலவே என்பது. இப்போ இந்த குரலடி 2 சீவர்களுடைய பார்த்தோம்னா அந்த பொருள் தொடர்ச்சி பெரியகட் பெரினே. அப்ப பெரியகட் பெரினே என்பது நரந்தனாரும் தன் கையால் சீரு பொருள் அற்று முடிவதில்லை. தொடர்ச்சியா போய் 2வது சீரு 3வது சீர் முடிவுல தான் பொருள் முடியுது. நான் முன்னால வஞ்சிப்பா பார்த்த போது அப்படி இல்லை. சுரமறிவன பொருளெல்லாம் அங்கங்க முடியுது. அந்த வேறுபாடு இது பாருங்க. இது வந்து உள்வாட்டு கண்ணி புறநாள் பாட்டு. எனக்கு பாடினிய புலவர் பெயரும் ஞாபகம் வரல. சரி, பரவாயில்ல. வாழ் வளந்தர.
See, listen to it. What they say is, see, this is Purananuru number 4, and I think I sent this morning the one. So the see from the 5th line from the bottom, Anayai Ahan Mare. They say that Vanjichi starts there. So the preceding lines are Asuriyachi. So and then he says that the Osai differs. This is what I want you to listen. Whether Osai really differs, right?
வாழ்கூனது தனியா சொல்லணும். வாழ் வளந்தர.
Yeah, this also we'll see when we come to Asriyappa. I mean, the Kun, the standard place for, let's say, Tanichol, is the last seer of the second line in Venba.
The last seer of the second.
Yeah, see, that's the Kun. I mean, Kun would fit there more appropriately because that's a kind of bridge between the first 2 lines and the second 2 lines. But basically, it is a Tanichol, which has different functions. And here, the function is not Kun, even though he and maybe others also use that. See, what happens is that the Tanichol is used in more places, in more kinds of verses, right? So it is used in Asariyappa. When it is used in Asariyappa, it is at the beginning of the line, Val. So he says Val Kun, in the sense that they look at it as that's a topic. About that, a comment is made. So, Val Valamdara Marupattana. Instead of Val Valamdara Marupattana. Right? So, and then you also have the Tanichal at the end of the word. I mean, maybe the Manne would qualify like that. It's a repeated. And you have it in Bhakti poems, more commonly poetry, right? So they are not part, I mean, they are Tanichal in 2 senses. One is a word is a seed. And second thing is, it doesn't have direct syntactic relation with the rest of the lines, right? It stands separate, either as a topic and comment, or in the poetry you have a sentence and then poetry, see, you have that. So here they take it to be Kun. I don't know why that should be preferred rather than taking Val Valamdara, right? It could be not Kun as first seer of the line, right? But
And does it run?
மறுபட்டன செவ்வானத்து வனப்பு போன்றன.
Next one Kun.
தாழ் களங்குள கடல் வரைந்தன. குரலடி 2 சீர் தான் வருது. வாழ் தாளுங்கிறது கூன். ஒவ்வொன்றும் வாழ் என்னாச்சு, தாள் என்னாச்சு, தோல் என்னாச்சு அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு வர்றாரு. அதெல்லாம் கூன் தனிச்சொல், அது பாட்டு அடியில் வராது. வாழ் வலந்தர மறுபட்டன செவ்வானத்து வனப்பு போன்றன. தாழ் களங்குள கடல் பறைந்தன. கொல்லேற்றின் மறுப்பு போன்றன. அளவிட கொல்லேற்றின் மறுப்பு போன்றன. அது வந்து
here kolleru would be taken not as an extension, elongated consonant. It would be kol il, because you had to have 2 asai in a seer, except Tanichal, right? So if you say Kol, then it will be one asai, one seer, which is not preferred. So Kol, il. So if you have a consonant as an elongation of a pure consonant in Aravadai, that takes one matra. So it would be ner ner.
கொல் என்பது அது வந்து ஒற்று சேலப்படை, ஒற்றளப்படை அது. தோல் துவை தம்பி துளை தோன்றுவ நிலைக்கொரா இலக்கம் போன்றன. அது இந்த தோல்கிற அந்த படைக்கலம் அதுவும் தெரியும், அதுவும் பேருக்கு இப்ப தெரியாது. வாழ் போருக்கு கேடயம்,
ஆமா
ஷீல்டு.
ஆமா
இது வந்து தோல்ங்கிறது இது ஒரு ஷீல்டு தான். இது வந்து எதுக்குன்னா வேல் எறியுது, ஈட்டியில எறிய போருக்கு. இது எப்படின்னு சொன்னா, வாழ் வந்து இந்த கேடயம் இருக்க வாட்போர் செய்யும் போது முகத்தை மறைப்பது, மார்பை மறைப்பது, இப்படி
உடம்பின் மேற்பகுதி.
ஆமா, இந்த தோல் இருக்கிறத பாடி
he explained what toll is, which
இப்போ
is another.
வந்து ஒரு 100 பேர் இருக்கான்னு
So he said toll is
அதே ஒரு மதிசோர் போல
Ottisai Alabadai, right? I think he's not right because
இப்படி இருக்கும்.
as I said, if Kol is divided into two asai, then it will qualify to the Seyulisai Alabadai. It is a requirement for prosody, not just for musical.
அந்த என்ன அந்த தோல் அத வில்லம்புல வந்து அம்பு போடுறாங்க. அது அம்பு வந்து இந்த தோல்ல
There are three Alabadais. One is Solis Alabadai, which is a conjugation like
எய்ம் பழகிறதுக்கு ஷூட்டிங்க்கு எல்லாம் ஒரு புல்சாய் அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கிறாம பூராங்க பட்டு பட்டு கொத்து கொத்தி விட்டு புல்ஸ் மாதிரி இருக்கான். தோல் துவை தம்பி துளை தோன்றுவ.
Yeah, there are three Alabadais. One is called Solis Alabadai, which is a function of a conjugation like iri, niri, or kuri, right? These are either verb conjugation or noun derivation. See, that is Solisai Alabadai, which makes a new word. And then there are two in poetry. One is called Innisai, that is just for the music of it. That would be when you elongate the thing to 3 matra and things like that. Another is Seyul Isai Arabadai. That is, it needed to fill in a gap in the meter. Right? So, Kol here, if the way I understand it, then it would qualify to be a Seyul Isai Arabadai rather than Innisai Arabadai. But
because you need an asai there.
yeah, I need to have a seed, which is more than one asai.
Is it also relevant that it's to make the monai work? I mean, so we have the wrong vowel length, so he's sort of making position by having a doubled consonant.
Yeah.
But then it gets, so to say, emphasized by having the tripled consonant to make sure. This might be saying that in this that it's something that's precisely for the sake of the reciter, right? To make sure they really emphasize it. So this kind of what we might say is kind of false monai actually works.
But does the monai work with the Tanichol or what comes later?
I don't know.
I think the Edukai monai would work with Tanichol also.
So there is in fact an alternance between Val and Tar, which are long, and Chiv.
No, that's
and
true.
Kol.
That's true.
Because otherwise it's Val, Valandara.
Once it's Kol and Tol.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think here it is more Todai across Sir, right? Like Tal and Kalam. The second letter is La La.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But so in this case, would the monai work with between line 4 and 5? Kol yerin and Tol.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We also see that Tolapyam has a stricter condition for monai and also Yedighai, in the sense that they should match in Matre also.
Right.
Right. Whereas in the later grammarians, they extend it to say that you could have what they call varukam, that is uh, any vowel combination with a consonant would qualify. So from, see, the earlier one is pa should be mone. That's what Tolhapian says. And then later pa also would be mone. Right. So that's why you have so many todais in the later works. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
இலக்கரா இலக்கம் போன்றன. இலக்கம் அதான் புதுசு. விளக்குறா இலக்கம் போன்றன. மாவே மான குதிரை. இதுவும் கூன். மாவே எரிவதத்தான் இடங்காட்ட கருள் பொருள்த செவ்வாயான் எருத்து வவ்விய புலி போன்றன. போர்க்களத்துல கடுவாளம் போட்டிருக்கான். போட்டா மேல இருக்கு இழுத்து இப்படி போ அப்படின்னு காட்டு. அவனுக்கு குதிரைக்கு கடுவாளம் பட்ட வாயில ரத்தம் அப்படி ரத்தம் ஒழுகுது. அந்த சிவப்பா இருக்கிற வாய் இப்படி இருக்கு சொன்னா அது இறையை கவிட்டு போற புலி போல இருக்குதான்.
என்ன ஒரு அருமையான காட்சி பாக்க. அது எது கூட எதையும் இணைச்சிருக்காம இருக்கு.
மாவே எரிபதத்தான் இடங்காட்ட. அந்த குதிரை ஓட்டுற போது காலில் வச்சுதான் அத கேலப் பண்றது, ட்ராட்ஸ் கேலப் இதுக்கெல்லாம் எதிர்பார்த்தனால இப்படி போ அப்படி பண்ணும் காட்டுறான். ஸ்பீடுக்கு காலு உதச்சு காட்டுறது, திசைக்கு ஸ்டேரிங் கடிவாளம். அப்ப அதை வச்சு அப்படி போட்டு அவன் இழுத்து பண்ணாலும் ரத்தம் அப்படி கொஞ்சம் குதிரைக்கு வாயில ரத்தம் ஒழுகுது. அதை பார்த்தா இறை கவி கொண்டு போகின்ற புலியை போல. எரிபதத்தான் இடங்காட்ட கருள் பொருத செவ்வாயான் எருத்து வவ்விய புலி போன்றன. களிறு கதவெறியா சிவந்துராய் நுதுமழுங்கிய வெண்கோட்டான் உயிருண்ணும் கூற்று போன்றன. நீயே அலங்குளை பரி இவிழி பொலந்தேர் மிசை பொலிவு தோன்றி மாக்கடல் நிவந்தெழுதரும் செஞ்ஞாற்று கவினை மாதோ. இது வரைக்கும் வஞ்சி பாட்டு வருது.
So until now it is Vanjipa, right? Vanjipa is indicated by having two C's, right? Koraladi, right? And also with Movasai, right? And here you have Niye Alangulai Pariyivuli, right? It is three C's, right? Because Niye is Tanichal, that's not counted. Right?
Okay.
So the Tanichal is not counted for the number of C's. The same thing with Val, Valandara, Marupattana. Instead of Val, Valandara, Marupattana, right? So if you take out Tanichi, then all the lines have Vanjit. Right? But I don't know whether you noticed, he didn't recite it as Vanjiti. Right?
He didn't give it.
I didn't hear it. Right? He didn't say that Niye Alangulai Pariyivuli. He didn't say that. He said Alangulai Pariyivuli. Right? I mean, that is Asriyappa. I mean, Agavalosai. Right? So that's why, I mean, I know that the tradition is lost how to recite these things, so you agree with me, right? It's not my accusation.
But he didn't make a very sharp break.
He doesn't break. I mean, he didn't recite it as Tungalosai.
As
he recites it as
he did with
Ragavalosai.
the first couple lines where var and thar and kol, he was actually really singling them out as Tanichol.
Yeah. See, my guess is we will see when, I mean, there are various reasons for this tradition being lost. This is my hypothesizing this. One is he also, I think, sings in this one, how you could sing it in classical music.
Okay.
Right? So at some point, probably at the time of Bhakti, using pan, singing it with pan becomes the common practice, right? So, so if you take that as a classical one, it moves. I mean, this is a major shift in the sense that the earlier osai, which reflect folk rhythm, is changed to a classical way of reciting it. So from folk to classical is a big shift that happened. And the second thing which has happened is compared to Tolkapiam, the Todai and then an aspect of it called Vannam, which we will see today, takes upper hand. Right? It is the phonetic texture which gets more important from the Bhakti period on. So when you have the phonetic texture, it facilitates singing, one thing, and also I get a feeling that it breaks the connection with Osai. Right? Because when I listen to him singing Tevaram songs, even when he sings Viruttappa, I mean, what comes out is the Todai thing, not the Osai thing. But in the earlier consumption, at least in Tolkapiam, the Todai, the phonetic texture is somehow relates to the Osai. Right? But when the emphasis comes to this kind of Todai and Vannam, which is a phonetic texture, that link is cut because I hear when he sings Tevaram songs, which we'll see about examples of Todai and Vannam, it is the recitation emphasizes the long and short vowels and consonant. I mean stop consonants and nasal consonants. Not that kind of osai, which is not. I mean, this is my hypothesis that something happened.
அணையை ஆகன்மாரே தாயில் தூவா குழவி போல ஓவாது கூம் நின்னுடற்றியோ நாடு இது ஆசிரி பாட முடியுது.
So he says this ends in the last three lines end in Asriyappa with Muchirari, so that is Sindari. That's what I said, that I didn't hear the way he differentiates Vanjiyadi and Asriyadi. Right? In all of them it ends in at the end of the line. Right? Yeah.
பிடிக்கிற போது வரக்கூடிய ஓசை
அது சரியான விதத்தில் என்ன காணணும்
சொல்ற போது இப்ப வச்சுக்கலாம். இப்ப நான் மறுபடியும் நோட்ல படி காட்டுறேன். வாழ் வளந்தர மறுப்பட்டன செவ்வானத்து வனப்பு போன்றன தாழ் களங்கொள கடல் பறைந்தன கொல்லேற்றின் மறுப்பு போன்றன தோல் துவைத்தம்பிற் துளை தோன்றுவ நிலைக்கொரா இலக்கம் போன்றன மாவே எரிவதத்தான் இடங்காட்ட கருள் பொருள்த செவ்வாயான் எருத்து வவ்விய பொலி போன்றன களிறு கதவெறியா சிவந்துராய் நுதுமழுங்கிய வெண்கோட்டான் உயிருண்ணும் கூற்று போன்றன நீயே அலங்குளை பரி இவிழி பொலந்தேர் மிசை பொலிவு தோன்றி மாக்கடன் நிவந்தெடும் செஞ்ஞாயிற்று கவினை மாதோ அணையாகன்மாரே தாயில் துவா குழவி போல ஓவாது கூ நின் உடற்றியோ நாடு. அணையாகன்மாரையிலிருந்து ஓசை ஏற்பட்டது. அது இதுக்கு புலவர்கள் பழைய உரையாசனம் சொல்றாங்கன்னா, இந்த ஓசை வேறுபாடு எக்குச்செவி வேணும். எக்குச்செவின்னா அது நுண்ணிய ரொம்ப ஹைப்பர் சென்சிட்டிவா இருக்கணும்.
மியூசிக்கல் இயர்னு சொல்லலாம். ஏன் ஹைப்பர்
எக்குன்னு சொன்னா நம்ம ஸ்டீல் நினைச்சுக்கணும். ஸ்டீல்னா டெஃப்னு அர்த்தம் பண்ணி கூட ஏன்னா அவள் நுண்ணிய அது குண்டூசி போல குண்டூசி விழுந்தாலும் சின்ன ஓசை கேட்கல அந்த மாதிரி.
Yeah. I think in the second recitation he makes the difference in Osai between Vanjiyadi and Nasriyadi. That is why it should be this. The other one also, that is Siriyakat Perine, also should make that kind of difference. The point about Yakusevi he makes is that Yahu is etymologically from Yev. Yev is short, right? Yev plus Ku is Yah, Yahu. So it's a sharp yes, you see, that's a sense we would use. And then talking about the history, you could I could also make another point that what was considered Isaipa, Yerpa, becomes Isaipa. Right? In the, so the bhakti poems would be called Isaipa, right? It is set to music, whereas the earlier one, Sangam, is not called Isaipa. It is Yerpa, Yerpa in the sense of the natural or non-musical musical one, right? Okay. So we'll go to the next Urupu, which is Todai, right? So the okay, okay, Todai is okay. First of all, Todai, about the etymology, it comes from Todu, which means stinging or stringing together like a garland. Right? Todai itself has the meaning of garland. Right? So what is strung together. Tolhapiam gives Todai the status of Urupu, which he doesn't give to Talai. Right? But it is it's a much simpler system of Todai. There are two aspects of okay. So later on we would see another thing which is Vannam. Right? So Todai and Vannam go with oral, the sound to the ear. To distinguish between Todai and Vannam, I would say that Todai is more like a sound pattern of a verse, whereas Vannam is really the phonetic texture of that. You see, if Todai, okay, see the crucial difference between Todai and Vannam is that Todai tells you distribution of sounds, right? Whereas it doesn't say what is distributed, right? It simply says that you could have one letter or one sound distributed in all the first aside, right? Or Yadugai in that way. Whereas when you come to Vannam, you would say that it gives the content of what is distributed, what the content of the fillers in the slots, right? So Todai doesn't say that say that, for example, the Monet must be a stop consonant, right? It simply says that in the first C, you could have the same letters coming. Whereas when you go to Varnam, then you make a differentiation between what happens when all of them are stop consonant or all of them are long vowels and things like that. So one way of looking at the difference between Todai and Varnam is to look at this way. The grammarians use the term Nilam or Tanam later on. So the Nilam gives the place where we are talking about a phonetic feature or a sound feature. What fills in is in Varnam. So you have options there. It's not as neat as I have said just now in the literature. I mean, there's a lot of lack of clarity in distinguishing these two, but this is my way of differentiating the two.
So if I can restate for a second, so you're saying then that, yeah, in this ideal sense, so Varnam describes the repertoire of sounds that are going to be used in a poem, and Tordai describes the conditions of their combination.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Right.
Okay.
So in other words, what I'm saying is that Tordai talks about the gaps in terms of places where you can fill in, and Varnam is what could be filled in.
Right. Okay.
You have a choice of filling in, and by choosing certain choice, you create certain kind of oral effect. Right.
Okay.
That's what basically is. But Varnam, we'll see that. I mean, there is a lot of lack of clarity in the concept of Varnam. Anyway. That is, I think that's one basic thing. Todai is the Nilam for sounds to occur. Right. I don't know what would be the best English word for that. I mean, this is a slot.
Yeah, place or slot.
Yeah. So that's a slot. It gives the slots, right? And there are two ways of there are two ways of explaining this slot. One is across C's in an adi, right? So if you have 4 C's, then you have first C, second C, third C, fourth C, right? You could say something can occur in the first C, something can occur in the first and third, etc., right? That is one way of doing that. The other one is across lines, right? See the first line and second line, or first, second, third, and fourth line, or first and second one slot, and third and fourth line or another slot, right? So you can look at this both working horizontally and also vertically. Okay. This is what we saw with reference to Adi also. See, the choral Adi could refer to Adi with two C's, or it could be a poem with 2 lines, choral Venba, right? Right. So they always have this horizontal and vertical dimension of the verse, right? Okay. So there are okay. 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 There are certain restrictions. One is, as I mentioned earlier, Tolkappiyam has limited number of distribution of sounds. He gives greater emphasis to Monet and Yeduhai than to other kinds of distribution. And he does mention certain other kinds of distribution, but he doesn't elaborate on them. So that is one difference between the earlier period and the later period. See, the other feature of Todai is even though it is defined in terms of எழுத்து, right, it is actually மாத்திரை.
Okay.
So when you say Monet, as I said a while ago, if the first letter is Kuril, then this next Monet also should be Kuril, right? But this is relaxed by the later grammarians by the notion of Vagga எழுத்து, right? So all உயிர்மெய் எழுத்து of a particular consonant would qualify, right? And similarly, all Vagga எழுத்து கச்சட தபர would qualify, not just ka. Right? So this is one expansion of Monet and Yeduhai. The other restriction on the pattern pattern is that whatever you talk about Yeduhai and Monet across seas, it must have in the first seed. Right? So the first seed could have, let's say, Monet, and it could be repeated in all four seeds. Or you could have Monet in the first seed and the third seed, and Monet, it applies to Yeduhai also, in the first seed and the last seed. Right? But later on, they also relaxed this condition. You could have Monet in third and fourth seed, but not in the first two. Kind of thing. So you could see that they are widening up the possibilities of the phonetic or the sound pattern of the verses. So the okay, and then okay, so the okay, the other okay. Okay. So the okay. So the other ways it is the Todai is expanded is in lot of ways, right? When you come to the Apparangalam period, they say they also include third letter, right? So Monet, first syllable or first asai, and second letter of first asai Yeduhai, and then the third is not doesn't figure at all in Togapiam, but then they have also a third one. That's one because Yeduhai Monet are about the first asai. Right. So when you come to third, you could go to second asai also, right? So that's an expansion they make, and another one is see, not only the asai, the whole seed could repeat. The whole seed could be the slots. Right, the same seeds would repeat. There's another expansion of say Varkai Eluthu I already mentioned, and then this also I mentioned the number of seeds besides the first and second seed, right? That's also okay, extended, and then they go into Andadi, that is the sound at the end is repeated in the first of the second. We'll see some of these examples, and then the other one is Niral Nirai, that is retrospect. Sorry, not retrospect. Reciprocal. Right. So it won't be in the linear line, but there is some reciprocal thing. So as I have been trying to see this, see what we saw so far, the urupus like this Matrai, Eluthu, Asai, See, Adi are structural properties of a verse. Of course, the Vosai is a guiding principle, but they are the building blocks of that. When you come to Todai, I think it is more of an expression of the aesthetic property of a verb, right? So when Tolhapium includes this Todai as a urupu, we should remember that Sayurial does not make any difference between prosody and poetics, or prosody and aesthetic, or structural and aesthetic. Therefore, there is no problem for him to consider this as an urupu of Sayur, but this is a different kind of urupu. This is a urupu which is not a building block, but it is a urupu which has an aesthetic. The aesthetics is oral, the sound, and for some theoretical reason, Tolhapium differentiate between visual aesthetics, which is by Womai, which he doesn't include as a urupu of Sayur. That's a separate one. So for him, the aesthetics is only the oral, the sound, thing, right? And the okay, so there are five. Before that, I mentioned that the slot distribution of Todai could be across seeds in a line or across lines in a word, and there is a name for that. If it is across seeds, it's called seed vahai Todai or seed Todai, and if it is across line, it is called adi vahai Todai or adi Todai. Okay. 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 So there are five slots. One is Monai and Yaduhai. That is normally the first asai of a seed. But if the first seed begins with long vowel, it would be a ner asai. The second asai could be an edugai, right? So edugai could belong to the first asai or the second asai. This is two monai edugai, and the third one is Iaibu. Iaibu is the what's called the end rhyme, where you have the same element at the end of last seed of a.
So like the Purana Nuru poem that we read before.
Yeah.
Mane.
Yeah, that is but that is by the whole seed is repeated.
Yeah.
But you could also have only asai is being repeated.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Well, picking up from Marty's question, I mean, isn't there? I see already in your notes that you discuss that there's normally has to be there's a meaning condition, right? Because the meaning you can't have synonyms, or you can't have the same word just repeating and make Monai or Yedahai, right? You have to have, so that's more like a refrain, right? So I don't know.
And
If
that's a question, rather whether this it's more elegant, I guess, if it is either a sound or a word that doesn't repeat in the same meaning.
Right.
But in reality, there are a number of occasions in which we have words repeated in the same meaning.
See, Tolkapiam and also the later grammarians have a separate word for it. They call irate todai. Irate todai would be what you call refrain. Right?
Okay.
So it is the whole word. Would be repeated. I mean, they give. We'll see some examples. They give examples like pohuvano, pohuvano, pohuvano. Right. The one line has three. Same word is repeated. That kind of duplication is also has a name. Irate todai.
Okay, but
Right?
does this, because for example, in Kanban this happens a lot when apart from like Monai and Yedugai, you also have a word, usually maybe in the second seer, that repeats with very vague semantic value, right? So, but it runs through the verse at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
That what would
I
that
mean, they
be?
call it irate
That
todai.
is also Iratai Todai, because I was reading, for example, this. I was reading the Pairam of the Kambramayanam some time ago, and there is one verse, I guess 7 or something, that does Turaya Dutta, Uraya Dutta, Naraya Dutta, Paraya Dutta in the beginning, right? This adutta as a verb has a very very light meaning. It actually strings together and it's repeated. It's also the same word, almost in the same form, apart from the last verse. So that is also this way of this usage is also would classify as Irattai Todai.
I would say so.
At the beginning of the verse.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll tell you the problem, right? One is what Tolkappia says.
Okay.
But if you go by the commentaries,
Yeah.
if you go by the commentaries, they bring in everything which Chapurangalam says into Tolkappia. Right? So it's extremely hard unless you have your own urai for Tolkappia. I was not able to do that.
In due time.
Yeah, right. As I did with Omai and Alfur, I should do the prosody of that.
So, but in that case, so I mean, you actually say you have the conditions for you have Yedahai conditions already being met, right?
Yeah.
And as you say, I mean, this is just a verbalizer, and the meaning's actually somewhat different each time.
Yes, somewhat,
So-
but it's slightly different. But I do think that is, for example, in this kind of Virutam poems, like from Kanban onwards, it's very common to have this
Mhm.
word in the
Yeah.
beginning that repeats, no?
Yeah.
So I was just wondering
So,
what.
yeah, see, I think, see, I was trying to make a distinction between structural elements and aesthetic elements, and I tried to put Todai into the aesthetic elements from the point of view of Tolapium.
Yeah.
But later on, it is part of structural elements.
Okay.
A poem is defined by Todai.
Okay.
It becomes requisite.
And even in Tolhapiam, you find some evidence for that. When he in one sutra he says Todai unarndore. What he means is those who know Yapu.
Okay.
So Todai comes to be equated with Yapu.
Okay.
So it has gained such an importance in versification, and as a result of it, even the measurement of Adi is by Todai, right? This is done by Ilakanavada, sorry, it is done by Veerasolyam. So we saw that you could talk about the length of an Adi Siradi, how many seeds are there, Talayadi, how many Talais are there. Veerasolyam says Todayadi. How many Todais are there in a line? But Todai he restricts to Eduhai.
Okay.
So how many Eduhais are there in a line? So if it has all Eduhai, then you would have 4 not Todayadi, something like that. So the Todai has become a defining feature of verse, but I think that was beginning in Tolhapiam, but
Okay.
that was not the primary defining character of a verse.
Okay,
Yeah.
to say it very plainly, for Tolkapiam, something like Toda is still optional and makes the verse more beautiful,
I would
but
say,
it's not
yeah,
structural
optional in the
terms
sense
of
that, I mean, he doesn't
requirement.
distinguish between structural and aesthetic.
Okay.
Yeah, verse has both, and this would belong to aesthetic, and depending on your aesthetic, you could have more or less of Todai. That's why he talks about, I mean, this is accepted by later grammarians also, he talks about Sendodai. Sendodai is straight, without any Todai. That's also a good poem.
Okay.
I mean, there's also the empirical fact that whatever relationship we want to posit between Sangha and the Tolhapiam, that it's not requisite in the anthologies, right?
Yeah.
Right. It is not. It's not.
But from the Bhakti period on.
It's
right,
it's
yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah, I think
everywhere,
that has
right?
something to do, as I suggested, with music also. Right. See I think that's the period Yelpa becomes Isaipa. Right, and then Isaipa later becomes Sandappa. Right, it has to be sung, otherwise you don't experience the poem. Unlike Sangam poems, which you can experience without singing. Right. Just I mean, the Omai, which is a visual aesthetic, is there, very much there. So in that sense, I would say that Sangam poems are a visual poetry than oral poetry. Oral poetry, right? So yeah, okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So there are 5 elements which are basic for Todai, which are some of them are based on the place of occurrence. Monai Yeduhai, this is the first and second or first seed. One is the first seed is a slot, and in the first seed you have 2, the first asai, and only 1 letter or 2 letters depending on the asai length, or it could be first asai and second asai. So that's the place. And the other one is the last seed, that is Yeibu. That's called Yeibu. The other one, which is not about a place, is Arabadai. Arabadai is also considered as a variable in Tode, right? I don't have an explanation for that why Arabadai fits in here. And the fifth one is Muran. Muran is contrast, right? And often you will find example of Porul Muran, that is semantic, antonyms coming in. But my guess is by the historical development could be like this. So the what's called the contrast also basically started with sound contrast, like Inbam Tunbam, right, in two adis or two C's. So this is a contrast of phonetics, but it also happens to have a semantic contrast.
Okay.
Right. So then they divided, they separated out the semantic contrast, right? And then we'll see later Parasirier elaborates it much more. We'll see how it happens. So anyway, Arapadai is about the content, not about the slot. Unlike Monai, Yedhai, and Yeibu. And the Muran, first I thought that Muran is counter to what is said about Todai, that it is about the sound pattern, right? But Muran is about the semantic pattern of the word. But if my hypothesized history is right, it also started as a sound pattern, right, of a word, which also happens to have a semantic contrast, right? So these are the 5, and then you multiply it by 4, that is 4 osais, then you get 20. That's what Tolgapian say, you have 20 todai.
Okay.
So they suggest that these slots are tied up in some way to osai,
Sorry.
right?
Yeah.
So it would change the color of osai in some way. So but as I said, in the recitation we find that these todai supersedes osai, right? You lose osai, and then you focus on how you emphasize the different kinds of sound. So this 20 or whatever examples they give about Todai, they have the standard grid, that is 4C, not 3Cs or Adi. Muchi ready or not C ready, or ING ready. So only 4 they talk about the slots. Right? I think this is maybe that was the beginning of verses historically, that 4 was the standard, but it has become a kind of pedagogical tool, right?
Okay.
Whenever you explain Todai, you have to think of not C ready and then say that. So why, yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Welcome.
It's almost a party today.
Yeah. So when you have okay. Okay. When you have this the 20, the later grammarian says that there are 100 today, from 20 to 100. Right? What they do is they bring in 5 more voci, like Pirundisai, Mayangusai, I don't know what these are. So 20 into 5 gives you 100.
Okay.
So it is a combination of the slots with different kinds of voci gives you different todai, right? So the role of todai in the oral quality is much complex like this, and also very opaque, because we don't know what the results of these creations are, right? So okay, so okay. So the important thing is about the Murandodai, as I said, which is the only, at least in the common understanding, as a meaning-based or sense-based todai, while all others are sound-based, todai. And here, Tolhapiam simply states that there is sol and porul in Muran. Probably what he means is, this is my interpretation if I write a commentary of Tolhapiam, is there is a Muran of sol, that is the words which are near homophonous, right? Like Tunbam, Inbam, or one men, or things like that. Yeah, these things. But a subcategory of that is they could also semantically contrast. Right? Not all homophonous words or near homophonous words have to be semantically contrasting, right? But one sub-variety of that would be that. And then I think the theory changes that, okay, todai you also brings sense cohesion. Not only the sound cohesion, but also the sense cohesion. So that would mean that you will have the different phenomenon where you have contrast between words and contrast between senses. So okay.
Acknowledging this in the basic typology is a kind of way to highlight or accentuate the fact that these words that we have as what we call rhyming antonyms could accentuate the thing we were just talking about the fact that that even though it's not really spelled out, you do have to have different. There has to be a difference in meaning. For these different rhyme words, again, in the larger sense, all of them have to be semantically differentiated in some way. Right, so by putting that in the beginning of the typology, it's sort of say like it gives that prominence in the theory. Does that make sense? Just as a hypothesis.
You mean the semantics getting prominence?
I mean, because otherwise, I guess, it's not acknowledged that what we were just talking about, that you can't then have a series of words that we can't. Well, I guess that it brings the prominence fact you can't have the same word, right? You actually have to have some. There has to be some level of semantic differentiation for each one of those things to kind of make place, right?
Yeah.
I'm reminded. So there's this.
Yeah, that is likely to be semantically. If you have the same word repeated, then there won't be a semantic contrast.
Right, but it
Right.
would make it would
But,
definitionally make the
we'll
phonetic
see that
rules.
what
Right?
Prosody does it, I would say that he brings a new theory about this. What he doesn't look at the soul purul, the role of soul and purul in Muran the way I put it, but he takes them as soul and purul are two things where Muran could take place, and then looks at the combinations.
Okay.
And then there are five Muran Todai. That is, you could have soul, purul, soul without purul without soul, all kinds
All
of
four, yeah,
combinations.
sure.
But in that, he brings in what we would call sledai. So it is a repetition, but in terms of purul, see, you would divide it.
Because there's it's a vaguely analogous. It's not a parallel case, but it's a vaguely analogous case where, in an Alamkara Shastra, where you have you have yamaka is one of the things that's always been there, where you have a string of identical phonemes repeated, and then there's one theorist named Bhatta who introduces the idea. In his presentation, before he actually introduces yamaka as a theory, he first gives the rules for this very, very, very kind of rare and unusual figure with a very long name. It's called Punaruktavata Bahasa, the appearance of repetition, which usually involves shlesha.
Yeah. He gives an example.
Okay.
Of that kind.
And
So-
but the idea goes that he uses that as a way to theorize yamaka, as a way to give us a sort of prior theoretical condition for thinking about the fact that we have to have different meaning across the phonetic strings. So he isolates this weird, very rare, not very significant alankara, which is a meaning-based alankara, by way to help him theorize sound-based alankaras.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So you could see in this kind of, you would be able to say how much Prosody is informed by the development in Sanskrit theory. But from the Tamil point of view, it's clear to me is that Todai has gained its place deep in theory of Ani from Prosody. It started as a feature of Prosody in Tolapian to add the sound value to your verse, and then at the time of Perasariya or even Yapurangalam, then you find it how you can make different kinds of ani, right? So that you would see. So see the Ilamburnar faithfully sticks with Tolhapi, right? There are, okay. Okay. So. Okay, the example they give for the straightforward Todai is
The Semtodai.
Sendodai is without any Todai. For Todai,
Okay.
for Muran Todai, see the one, okay, see, which you have something like Karumai Semai. Right? Kari, yes. So that is Sol Muran, which also happens to have semantic one. And also Noi Marundu or Pahai Natpu. This is no lexical contrast, but there is a semantic contrast. Right?
Yeah.
This is the two distinctions which Tolhapiam and Ilamburan have made. So you could have a contrast where you have near homophonous words which also have semantic contrast, right? That's what Tolhapiam allows. And from that you extend that you could have a non-homophonous forms which are repeated, which are semantically contrast. Right? So this is a big step. You go from phonetics to semantics,
Yeah.
right? Which is not, in my view, original intention of the Lafi.
Okay.
Right? It keeps it still under phonetic feature of that. And Perasirier goes much further than than this. See, okay. See, the one example. Okay. One extension of Porul Muran, the semantic semantic contrast is the words should belong to the same semantic class. Right? So, இரும்பின் அன்ன கருங்கோட்டு புன்னை பொன்னின் அன்ன நுண்தாது உரைக்கும். Right? So, இரும்பு and pon is considered to be a muran, பொருள் muran. And the reason is that they both belong to the semantic category or class of metal, and they contrast. Similarly, the noi marundu also would be taken as a health or something like that. I think they are. They suggest to me that it's not open-ended. Right? What you consider as a semantic contrast is not any kind of contrast. You see, it is a contrast between words within a semantic class. And the commentators go a step further, and then they say that okay, சிறுகுடி பரதவர் மடமகள், சிறுகுடி பரதவர் மடமகள், the innocent girl of the fishermen of small communities. பெருமதர் மழைக்கணும் உடையவாள் அணங்கே, பெருமதர் மழைக்கணும். So you have சிறுகுடி and perungan, right? So this is a contrast, right? Siru and peru. But the contrast is not with kudi and kan. See, sirukudi and perunkan, and the contrast is not there, right? So the contrast is only with the adjectives or modifiers, not with the head, right? And they conclude, so this is a sol muran. So my way of understanding is that Porul Muran should also have a contrast with a referent.
I mean, there should
So
be the
here the
meaning
referents
of,
are different. Right? One is kudi, the another is kan. So the referents are different, even though their attributes are contrasted. Right? So that would go under Sol Muran, not under Porul Muran. Right? So this is another condition they have for Porul Muran. It is so if you have yeah. Let me read some of the examples which Perasiriya discusses. Okay. So he gives an example for just like the one I gave, which is with reference to referent, but another one where there is a contrast between words but not with senses. Right? Sol muran, purul muran alla. Right? The example he gives is Sendodai pahali karungai kanavan. Right? So the hunter with the dark hands, and another line says Sendodai pahali. So Sendodai pahali is the arrow, Sendodai is the straight shoot, right? So this is interesting. The Sendodai and this also are the same thing, right? that is, Sendora is a straight shoot, right? Without any, so that gives almost the suggestion that the Trudais are kind of manipulations. Yeah, so he says that this is not Porul Muran because Sendodai, Sem is about being straight.
Mhm.
And in Karankai, it is about complexion,
Yes.
complexion, right?
Mhm.
Therefore, this is not a contrast in meaning, but contrast in words. Right? Sem and Karam are contrasting, but their meanings in the context are different.
Yeah.
So this is one example of Muran being with words but not with Purul. Yeah, I mean, I believe that all these would be part of Ani, right?
Right.
So when you are discussing these kinds of
So by the previous condition you talked about, so those fall within the same class as being color words. It's just that semmai in this case doesn't have its sense as a color word and takes on a different. And so it's no longer. So it looks
Yeah.
like it's
color contrast, but color contrast is not about the what you call the whatever gives the color, right? The
right.
like
Pigment or
decibels.
tone or something.
Yeah, right. Pixels. So it's not about pixels, right? It is about the different meaning.
Right.
So that
in this
is why
sense,
you cannot call it Porul Mural.
Right. So in this case, you would see it, and your first sort of pre-interpretive thing would actually think that we actually have two words that fall within a color class, and so are potentially, thus this case of Boromoron, but then they're not just because of the meaning conditions of the particular words in that particular line.
Exactly.
Maybe
Right.
this is particularly effective if someone has in mind lists of things that are synonymous
Sure.
or antonymous, and then at that point you hear them and you just recognize them immediately at a level which is earlier than actually understanding what the poem means.
Yeah, also you could see that when you read the poem or when you hear it recited, you see there's a good contrast between red and black. But
There is
when
no
you try to
red.
understand the poem, no, the contrast is different.
I see what you mean about this falling within the domain of Arni, just because
Yeah.
the sheer amounts
Yeah,
of
that's what my
computation you have to do.
that's
is
what
very
my sense. I mean, Parasir brings it totally to Ani.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe Sanskrit does that, or I mean, Yapurangalam does that. I shouldn't say that. Maybe Tamil poets started doing
Sure.
this, right? And then this is accommodated in the grammar. There are interesting examples like that. See, the another one is Senjol Kelada Vellarivar. Senjol Kelada Vellarivar. Right? There's a contrast between red and white, but Senjol is a good word, Vellarivar is ignorant people. Right? So the meaning of Vellai is metaphorical there. Right, and meaning of Sem is metaphorical, right? So when the poet uses in a metaphorical contrast, but the words are color, right? Then it is Sol Muran, not Porul Muran, right? Because the straight or morally good word and being ignorant are not semantic contrasts, right? Because there are conditions for semantic contrast. It should be the same semantic category, class, or something like that, right? So in a way, they are trying to control the Porul Muran go haywire. Right? So you could use your imagination, see there are so many Porul Murans, right? Right? So that's how they try to control it.
And where are these examples drawn from? Are these from Prosody?
All these are from Perasriya. I didn't read his original work. I got it from secondary literature. I will check with, I have it, I didn't have time to see what the, I will write down where the citations are from, right? Then the other.
Oh, this is from this Tolhapia Pabil book.
Yeah, right.
Tolhapia
See,
Pabil Korparangal.
he gives this, but he doesn't give the citation reference source
Okay.
either,
Okay.
right? So they take it.
But it's there.
It must be here in Parasiri if the editor had given the sources. Otherwise, I'll have to do some Google search and find out where there are there. Then. Okay. Then another one is there is a okay. Okay. Sense contrast, but not word lexical contrast. The example Parasir gives is okay. Okay. Neeror anna soil. Thiyor Anna Uram, describing a hero. He has strength like fire, right? But soil, his appearance, is like water. Water stands for softness, right? And also, there is a contrast between water and tea, right? So they also meet the criterion that they come with the Panjabhutam, right? So it comes to semantic class. So this is an example of Purulmuran, which are not Solmuran. Neer and Ti are not contrasting lexical item like Inbam, Tunbam, see, like that.
Right.
So the contrast only comes from the meaning, not from the phonetic structure of the word. So he takes it differently as an example of plus sense minus word, right? And then,
but again, in both cases, it's metaphorically displaced sense too. Still, just like in the examples that were Solmuran. I mean, just noting that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. That is true, but he takes it to be a sense contrast, in spite of the metaphorical extension of that. Maybe he takes it simply at the level of Neer and Ti are contrast among the elements, something like that. Right? Then another one is an interesting one. He gives this Thanniyal Atratayangal, one line, Venni Purul Nasayi. So here Thanniyal talks about coolness, and Venir looks like hot water, but here Vem is used in the sense of desiring. So he has a desired quality,
sure.
and then cool disposition, something like that. So here you have this is a kind of thing when he gives a misleading idea of semantic contrast, but it is not real hot water, but it is a desired quality kind of thing, right? So he brings in this kind of thing, also kind of fake contrast, right?
But is there no?
Yeah.
But is there at least a Chol?
Pardon me?
Is there at least a Sol Muran?
So this is an example of no Solmuran, and semantic contrast
And
is
no
fake.
Porul? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right. So you could have a semantic contrast which is not real, but it's only it's apparent.
Okay.
Right. That also comes into that. I mean, all these clearly are Ani problems.
Mhm.
Okay.
I mean, this is what the Dandilangaram would under a different regime would also call Muran, but that's
Uh-huh.
what in Sanskrit would be a virodha bhasa, a fake, a false contrast.
Okay, yeah, this is a false contrast. He gives. Right? Then he gives another example. This is first line is describing Shiva. Teenir Nenjat. So, okay. Yeah, Teenir Nenjattu Irumidai, right? The Shiva who keeps the Teenir here is the poison from the ocean. He keeps it in his throat. And the next line says, Uvari Anna Udaiperum Selvar, or something like that. So the Uvari is sea, and Teenir also here it refers to the poison from the from the sea, and here it is it's a contrast of I mean it comes under Porul Muran in the sense of same object, that is a sea. Its different aspects are brought up. One is the poison from the sea. See, another is the largeness of the sea, like rich people's wealth, right? So largeness is one aspect, and the poison from the sea is another aspect. So there is a plural connection there, but these are different aspects of the same same one. See, okay. Okay. Yeah. And also so another one he gives the example where you have I think both Porul contrast, I mean Porul Muran and Swal Muran, Sevvel say, Sevvel say, so the man or child which has the red sphere, and Karuvil Kanavan, the hunter with the dark bow, right? So here they say that Sev and Karu contrast in terms of the words, and Veil and Will contrast in terms of sense because they belong to the same category of weapons. Right? So this is a case where you have both. Right? Like that, he goes on giving examples of teasing out the lexical from the semantic, and gives that. Then finally, under Todai, as I gave in that counting of Todai, see, as I said that there are four seats, and then the gaps could be the slots could be in four seats, and so they talk about different permutations of this. One is, let's take Mone, it could work with Yeduhai also. One is if it is in all four seats, it would be Mutrumone, right? It has a special name. If it is only in the first seat, it's simply Mone, right? If it is first and third, it has a name Polipu, right? If it is in the first and fourth, it is Uru. Right? Like that, they have different names depending on which slots are filled up, right? So the filling up is called Todai Viharpam. Right? Viharpam here is used in the sense of variation. Normally Viharpam is used different, but here it's a variation of the slot, right? So when so if you look at the calculation they make, as it said in the handout, Tolkapiam states that the possibilities of Todai are 13,699. I don't believe it is Tolkapiya Sutra. Even if it is, with a limited role he gives to Todai, you cannot create these many of these things. And this number also differs between commentators, right? So what they how they arrive at this is, if you look at the other handout and how Ilamburner calculates it. Let's take Monet. The first one is 12 vowels. Right? That is 12, right? And then you add the consonants, right? So then that would give 18 consonants and 12 vowels. Combinations, and go like that. They go on looking at different possibilities of that. And also when you multiply it by whether it is in 2 Cs or 4 Cs or 3 Cs, and then you get this phenomenal number of maybe for computer to make Todais this might be helpful. Not human beings, right? So okay. So yeah. So as I said that on Todai is added the Varnam, right? So let's just listen to this Varnam. We'll discuss that later.
ஓசை இது பதிப்பிட்ட பேர்ல உரையா பத்து பேர் இப்போ இந்த வண்ணம் என்ற உறுப்பு இருக்குங்களா, இது தொல்காப்பியர் செய்யுள் அடிக்கு உறுப்பாகத்தான் சொன்னார். செய்யுளுக்கு ஒரு 4 வரி செய்யுள் அப்படி சொன்னா, அதுல ஏதோ ஒரு வரியில தான் இந்த வண்ணம் என்ற உறுப்பு காணப்படும் அவர் காலத்துல. பின்னால அதுவே பெரிய ஒரு யாப்பு வேடையாக வளர்ந்து விட்டது. வண்ணம் என்ற உறுப்பு அது எழுத்து மாத்திரை அடிப்படையாகவும் எழுத்தினுடைய ஓசை அடிப்படையாகவும் அமைந்தது வண்ணம் என்ற ஒரு உறுப்பு. அது இன்றியமையா உறுப்புன்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. அது செய்யுளுக்கு அடங்கூட்டக்கூடிய உறுப்பு. அது பழைய தொல்காப்பியத்துல அது ஒரு வரியில தான் இருக்கும். ஒரு வரி அல்லது 2 வரியில இருக்க முடிய செய்யுள் முழுவதுமாக அந்த உறுப்பு. இப்ப கைலமலையை பற்றி ஒரு பதிகம் பாடுறார். அதுல பாட்டு முழுதும் பாருங்க எப்படி அந்த வல்லெழுத்தே வருது. புற்றரவு பற்றியகை நெற்றியது மற்றொருகன் ஒற்றை விடையன் செற்றதையில் உற்றதுமை அற்றவர்கள் அற்றுணைவன் உற்றநகர்தான் சுற்றுமணி பெற்றதொலி செற்றமொடு குற்றமில தட்டன வினாய் கற்றவர்கள் சொற்றகையின் முற்றுமொழி பெற்றகையில் ஆயமலை அப்படியே இந்த பிரெட் ஸ்லைஸ் போட்ட மாதிரி சீன் தோசை.
Right. So this is how we listen to some of this.
Sorry,
One of
I can't do that because I can't find music on your iPad.
புற்றரவு பற்றியகை நெற்றியது மற்றவர்கள் ஒற்றை விடயம்.